welcome back to my channel. My name is Tanya, for those of you that are new here, and I am a furniture painter and a watercolor artist. So you'll be seeing both type of tutorials on this channel, but today I'm going to be showing you how to paint an angel using watercolors. So let's jump right in. Okay, so I have my Arches watercolor paper, I have my Winsor Newton watercolors, and today I'm using a round size 12 paintbrush, and I'll let you know if I do end up switching some sizes, but for right now I'm going to be using a size 12. Okay, so we're going to be sketching out our angel. So I'm just going to start with the head, and it's just going to be a generic oval, nothing too fancy. And this is going to be looking at the back of the angel, so I'm going to put her neck here and her shoulders, just because I want to know where the wings are going to come from in the middle of her back, about where they're going to be. So I'll sketch where her shoulders are. And I think the wings are just going to come from about there, because that's kind of like right in the middle of her back there. All right, so then I'm going to bring my wings up. And you could be really sketchy about this. It doesn't have to be perfect. Everybody's wings are going to look different. I've done a ton of different angels, and they always end up looking different. I'm going to do kind of a heart shape here. Start out with a heart shape. And just keep kind of penciling it in until you feel like you've got the right shape for you. Okay, then you're going to want to take a brush and wipe the eraser shavings off. Never take your hand and wipe the eraser shavings off for two reasons. One, you're going to get the oils on your paper, and two, you can smudge your pencil. So you don't want to do that. So always take a brush. And sometimes I don't follow my own rules, and then I regret it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start penciling in. I'm not sure if you can see it now that I erased most of it, but I'm going to start penciling in where her dress is going to be also. And I think I want a flowy dress. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and lighten up my line there too. Okay, so I'm going to start with her dress. Let's go ahead and start with her dress. I'm thinking I'm going to do a green dress. So I'm going to go ahead and take my paintbrush. Oh, and I always have 2 cups of water, one for cool colors, one for warm tones. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to start putting some water where her dress is going to be. I'm going to saturate the whole part here of her dress. And you don't want it too saturated because you don't want your watercolors to puddle, but just enough that it's nice and damp. And I'm going to go ahead and use, I'm just going off the top of my head, I'm going to go ahead and use Winsor Green Blue. And I'm probably going to put a little bit of Winsor Blue Green on, in it as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just get my colors wet. Put them down on my palette a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and get my Winsor Blue Green as well. I love these 2 colors together. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and mix them in just a little bit together. So I don't know if you can see on my palette, I've got a little bit of my Winsor Green Blue on this side and Blue Green on that side, and then in the middle is where they come together and they mix. You could go ahead and mix the whole thing if you want to. Sometimes I just do it like this because then I have to go back in and put a little bit more green or a little bit more blue onto my painting. So I like to have the 3 colors like that, but you don't have to do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and put it down on your paper. And you see how it's blending in really nicely? This Arches watercolor paper is so, such good quality that your paints just bleed beautifully onto the paper. And if you hear that noise in the background, I have 3 dogs and they're all walking around me. So you might hear their little nails on the floor. And then I'm just going to go ahead and fill it in. And I'm leaving the outer edges a little bit darker, and I'm going to leave the middle of the dress a little bit lighter. So I'm not coming in with any more paint on the middle of the dress at this point. I just keep picking up water, and I just putting water down. Okay, dab off my brush, get this out of the way, and I'm going to come back in with a little bit more, and I'm going to layer down a little bit more, just to intensify the edges a little bit more so they're a little bit darker. And you can bring that in. If it's not blending in as much as you want towards the middle, you can always help it along. And when it dries, you can then decide if you need more paint or not. At this point, just let it dry. Okay, so wash off your brush really, really good. All right, so since the outer edge of our dress is wet, I don't want to go in and do the wings because then they're going to blend together, and I don't want that. I want to keep the colors separately. So I'm going to go ahead and go to a different section, and I'm going to do her hair. And I'm going to give her long hair, but it's going to actually be behind the wings, so you're not going to see the full flow of the hair because the wings are going to be in front of it. Let's see what color I want to use. I'm going to pick up some burnt umber. And I'm going to get it nice and wet and bring it onto my palette. Okay. Put a little more water. And I'm going to slowly start to just kind of outline the shape of her head a little bit and the hairline. Now, if you want her neck showing, obviously you're going to do shorter hair on your angel. I think I'm going to give this angel long hair. So I'm going to bring it all the way down to her wings. Now, if you wanted the hair to be in front of the wings, then you would bring it down and flow it out, over the wings. But I don't want to do that. I want the focal point to be the wings of this painting, not her hair. You always want a light source. I know I've said this in other videos, but you do want a light source. So my light source is going to be coming from the right, so the left part of her head is going to be shadowed a little bit more. So you could just drop in a little bit more of your paint on that side. And I think I'm going to add a little bit of Payne's Gray as well, just to darken it a little bit, even more. So I'm just going to drop in a little bit of Payne's Gray on this side of her head. And I'm just kind of dabbing it down, and then I just spread it around. Since her head is nice and saturated, you could just move the paint around on the paper. There. Okay, then I'm going to let that dry. All right, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to do the background because my dress is still a little bit damp, and now my wings are bumping up to my hair here, so I don't want that either. So I'm going to start from the bottom of the sky and come up. And I think I will do a purple sky. So I will be using, let's see what this is, Winsor Violet and another one. I don't know what this one's called. I didn't mark it down, but it's a different kind of violet. But you can use whatever you want. You don't have to follow my paints exactly. You can make her dress red if you want to. It doesn't have to be exactly what I'm using. So don't get too hooked on what the colors are that I'm using. And I'm just gonna mix a little bit of those two together. So it's two different shades of violet. One's got a little bit more red in it, as you can see. And again, I'm going to mix the two in the middle, so I come out with this beautiful purpley color. And I'm going to add a little bit more water to it. And actually maybe even a little bit more, because I don't want a dark sky, I want a light sky. So I'm going to start from the bottom of my painting and work my way up, just because I want the bottom of the painting a little bit darker. So I'm going to start down here. And just kind of, if you feel that your dress is still a little bit damp, just kind of leave a little bit of a white line. Just go up to it as much as you can, but maybe not all the way, just in case it's still damp. You don't want them to blend together. And if it does end up bleeding together, just dab it off with your paper towel. It's not a big deal. So I'm just gonna go ahead and, so what I did before were wet on wet. I wet my paper first and put the paint on. And I believe I did that up here too for the hair. But I'm doing wet on dry. So now I'm gonna be not wetting my paper first. So I'm doing both different techniques. So one's wet on wet and one's wet on dry. So I'm just taking a little bit more water and I'm just gonna slowly just start to blend it up with just water. I'm just dabbing it in my water at this point, just so it bleeds up. You kind of want that smoky mystic feel. So it's good to have some sections that are a little bit lighter, some that are a little bit darker. You can pounce your brush to give it a little bit of texture. See how I'm pouncing my brush a little bit, and it'll give it some texture. You can do that as well. Another thing is, what I should have mentioned at the beginning of this video is, I could have taped down my paper if I wanted to. I like to move my paper around and even turn it upside down and stuff, just so I can get my lines nice and crisp. A lot of people tape down their page just so that it stays nice and flat. You could totally do that. I don't. I like to flatten my page at the end by putting it in a book or just flattening it somehow. So like right now, I'm going to be turning my painting. If it was taped down to my surface, I wouldn't be able to do that. You could always tape it to something like a turntable or something that you could maneuver and turn around, but I don't know, for some reason I just don't. All right, so I'm gonna let the sky dry now. And her hair is pretty dry, and so are her dress. So I'm gonna go ahead and intensify the dress a little bit. So I'm gonna pick up my green blue again. All right, I think I'm gonna add a little bit of Payne's Gray now. which I already have on my palette. So I'm just gonna go ahead and re-wet it. And I think I'm gonna add a little bit of Payne's Gray to her dress under the wings, just to show that there's a little bit of shadow under the wings. And I'm just kind of pouncing it on again. And I'm just going to carry it down. I'm not adding any more paint, but I'm just carrying it down. All right, that looks good. All right, so I'm going to let that dry now, and I'm going to go back to the hair. So I'm going to use those two colors I was using before. And I'm going to add a little bit more of burnt umber. And I'm going to add it to the right side, because that's the darker side of her hair. Okay. Okay, so while she's drying, I wanted to show you a couple different samples that I had done previously. So just to show you, there's different variations. This wing, I think I might do this wing on the painting that we're doing now. That's really pretty. Then there's this one that's a little bit more simple. And if you see a little bit of sparkle or shimmer in here, it's because I used a little bit of a shimmery paint on top of the watercolor when I was done with it. I think it's a, let's see, what did I use? It's a Dr. Martin's iridescent ink. So it's like a watery acrylic, but I believe it's an ink. So I just put a little bit on the wings just to give it a little bit of a shimmer. So this is what it is. And then I have this angel that I did even a fancier wing. So it's a little bit more detailed. And so then I went in with some gold polka dots, and I'll show you the gold I used. It's just like a liquid acrylic again. And it's just a generic brand. I think I picked this up at Michael's, I'm not sure. So I just went in, I did some polka dots with the gold, and I did some circles in the background. So there's those different variations. But I think what I'm gonna do today is maybe this wing and show you how I did that. So let me see if she's dry yet. Yeah, she's pretty dry. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna show you how I did that wing. All right, so obviously we have the two wings here, and you're just gonna start going in, and I'm using my pencil again. You could have done this before, but I didn't really know what kind of wing I was gonna do until now. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start penciling in some shapes here. And I'll go ahead and make a shape like that, and you can make these shapes any way you want. And I think I'm gonna go in, they're like almost like teardrops. It's just like a bunch of teardrops on here. Let's see. I'll come in like that. And come in like that. All right, so I am going to go and let's see, I think I want my wings to be kind of a goldish color, like a yellow color. So I'm gonna go ahead and use cad yellow, and I think I'm gonna use a little of yellow ochre as well. And I'm just gonna come in and I'm gonna do each little section separately, as if it's almost like a little puzzle piece. I'm gonna do each little section of the puzzle separately. And then I'm not gonna go to a section right next to it because it's gonna bleed together. So I'm gonna pick a different section. And I'm gonna do the same thing. And just be careful that your sky is dry already. Otherwise you'll have some of your sky color coming into your wings, and you don't want that. While we're letting that dry, I'm going to go in and make her dress a little bit darker. And just be careful not to touch the part of the wing that you had just painted. Now that her wings are still wet and her dress is wet, I'm going to go back into the hair. And I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that burnt umber that I had picked up before. And I'm going to just darken it even more. I'm going to go in and start doing the other parts. Some of them are still a little bit damp. I'm just going to try and be careful going around it. And I'm going to go ahead and pick up my yellow ochre again, because it's a little bit different than the yellow cad that I just used. And I'm going to start coming in underneath, just to give them a little bit of shadow where the layers are overlapping each other. So I want to add a little bit more red to the background. Right now it's that violet-y color, and I think I want to add a little bit more red to it to make it a little bit more of a reddish purple. So I'm going to pick up my permanent rose, and I will put it right here. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to add a little bit more of that permanent rose on top of my violet. Now, I don't know if you can see, but it's really uneven, my gradation, but that's the look I was going for. That's why I kept adding a little bit more and more to it. If you don't like that look, just kind of even it out when you first do it. When you first put your paint on, you're gonna wanna even it out and smooth it on. But I like that uneven look. I think it just gives it a little bit more texture, a little bit more interest to the painting. Okay, and I think I'm gonna let that dry, and I'm gonna layer her dress again. I'm one that really likes contrast and deep shadows and really nice white highlights. But if you want a softer look, you could have stopped a while ago. But I just like to keep adding layer after layer and just changing the look. So I'm gonna go in with a little bit of, let's see, I'm gonna go in with a little bit of my Scarlet Lake, which is like a tomatoey red. And I'm gonna add a little bit of this to the wings too, where I had put the yellow ochre before. Turn my palette around. So these were the two yellows I used for the wings. This is cad yellow and this is yellow ochre. I'm adding a little bit of that scarlet to the yellow ochre. A little more water. And I'm gonna just kind of go around where I had put that yellow ochre, just to shadow it even a little bit more, but more of a bright shadow. It's not gonna be a dark shadow. Clean off my brush and blend it in. Just gradate it down a little bit. You don't have to go all the way, and if you think you went too much, just use your paper towel and bring it back up. Okay, so I apologize. My camera had stopped and I didn't know it, and I was continuing on. So what I did was I started stylizing the wings a little bit, and I took some gold acrylic ink and I made polka dots with the back of my paintbrush. So if you want to make really nice polka dots, use the back of your paintbrush and just dip it in and just keep dipping. I also made some circles on my background, and I used a little bit of these paint brushes. I use the Arteza brand, but there's so many different paintbrush watercolor markers out there. This is the brand that I use. So what I did was I used a little bit just kind of to stylize the wings a little bit. And since it's a watercolor marker, you just lay it down as a marker and you just have a paintbrush with water, and you could just go in and just blend it in a little bit. So that's what I did. So you didn't miss much since my video had turned off, but that's what went on, was I stylized the wings and the dress a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna continue on and hopefully the video doesn't stop again. I am gonna go in now and I'm gonna take a little bit of my white paint. It's a pearl. It's an acrylic, it's Dr. Martin's iridescent. It's kind of like an acrylic ink again. And I'm gonna take a generic brush. You don't wanna use your good brushes for this. So I just kind of take just one of my other brushes, not one of my expensive ones. I'm not sure if you can see this on the video, but it's got this pearl iridescent look to it. And I'm just gonna bring it up a little bit. So it just gives my wings a little bit of a shimmer. And I am going to highlight the lighter parts of my wings. And I'm gonna just bring it up with little strokes. And I think this is a really pretty look. It just gives it a little bit of a shimmer. And you don't have to do this step if you don't want to. It's not true watercolors. But I like to go outside the box. I don't stick to just one medium. Especially if I like the way it looks, I don't really care. I'll just use it. I hope you could see that. It's just really, really pretty. I think I'm going to go in with a little bit of gold now. After all, it's the wings that I want to be noticed most in the paintings. So I am going to come in with a little bit of gold now. And just kind of do the same thing, but in the opposite direction. Come in with a little bit more of Payne's Gray because I want to darken her dress down here a little bit. And I want to make this part a little bit darker because I want the wings to look like they're on top of the dress. So you're going to push back the dress a little bit. And by pushing it back, you darken it. Kind of like it's giving it a shadow. And then you can blend it out a little bit. And I know I did my gold polka dots already. It's okay. It's not gonna move. It's like ink. It's not gonna smear it or anything. And I'm just using water and I'm blending it out. Okay. I'm gonna start darkening up my my wings a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a little of that Payne's Gray again, and I'm gonna come in and just kind of go over where I did my gold. Your gold will still show through. So what you're doing now is you're highlighting and you're stylizing the wings, you're putting a little bit more shadow in them. You're just playing around with it until you get the look that you like, until you're happy. And I'm going to turn my painting so I can get my lines nice and crisp this way. So you could have masked off, and when I say masked off, you could use, it's called frisket. And it's just, it's called liquid frisket, and you just kind of put it on, and then later you take it off with like a rubber cement thing that you take rubber cement off with, a little tool here. But I did not do that, but I do want to put a little ring of flowers around her head, like I did in the other ones. Let me show you. Like I did in the other paintings. I put little flowers around their head, kind of like a halo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some white ink, and I'm going to put a little white ink on where I want her, her halo to be. So if you kind of forget to put frisket and you forgot to leave, you know, it empty and no paint where you wanted it white, you can always do this. It doesn't have the same look, but it's an easy fix. And I'm just kind of going in and just kind of putting it on where I want my flowers to be. All right, and I'm gonna let that dry, and then I can come in and put some paint over it. I think I'm going to bring a little bit of white on her wings too, before I put this away. So I'm gonna take a little bit of white, and I'm gonna go around her wings a little bit. Just a little bit of white ink. It makes a big difference. It just makes the wings pop a little bit more off the page. I'm going to do the same thing to the other wing. I think I want to put some little white circles inside the other circles. Just because I don't feel that you see the gold circles enough. So maybe if I put a little white circle inside it, you'll see it a little bit more. Now, one of my favorite artists is Gustav Klimt, If you know the painting The Kiss, then you know who he is. But he's very stylized in his paintings, and I've always loved him since I was even in college, even before I was in college. I loved his style of painting, and maybe that's why I like stylized paintings. But that's where I tend to fall, is more a little bit more of a stylized painting. Okay, so I'm gonna let this dry and then I can do my flowers. Okay, so I think I wanna do orange flowers. So I'm gonna go in with my Scarlet Lake again, which is that kind of tomatoey orange red color. Add some water. So now that you have your ink down, you can paint right over it. And I'm just gonna kind of come in with some generic little flowers. A little more water. And I like to leave some of the white showing. There, that's really pretty. I think I'm going to deepen up this a little bit more with my Payne's Gray. I'm going to add some swirls of pearl to her dress. Now I feel that the painting is definitely more complete. So I just want to show you. So this is the painting that we just did now. These are other paintings that I did last night and this morning. There's another one and another one. So there you go. That's how you paint angel wings. Thanks so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a little something, and hopefully I inspired you to get out there and paint. And if you want more videos like this one or painting furniture, please subscribe to this channel and you'll get more up-to-date videos. And you can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Have a great day. Bye.